Well, it looks like the number one stunner, Birdman, and Miss Break My Heart, is actually out here breaking hearts and being exposed as a gold digger by Birdman. Word on the street is that Birdman is finally airing out what really went down between them, and according to him, Toni drained his pockets, dipped when the money slowed up, and now she's allegedly back on the verge of being broke again. Not Toni Braxton being a broke girl. But let's not forget, this isn't Toni's first run-in with money problems, y'all. With 2 bankruptcies under her belt and a history of luxury spending, the timeline is already starting to connect them dots. But now that Birdman speaking up is painting a very different picture of their whole relationship. People close to Toni say Birdman is just bitter and trying to flip the narrative, but others are wondering, did Toni really play him bad? Let's break down the allegations, the money trail, and the messy aftermath, because this might be one of the most shocking relationship exposés in R&B history. Well, y'all, it's looking like just another sad love song, because this situation right here is wild. According to multiple reports, Toni Braxton tried to walk away from Birdman with a $160 million divorce payout after being married to him for less than a whole month. I thought they was together longer, but get this, sources claim she didn't even stick around long enough to play the part. Allegedly, Toni separated from Birdman just 2 days after the wedding. Then less than a month later, she pulled the plug completely, filing for divorce and claiming that the marriage was irretrievably broken, with zero chance of fixing things. But this is where things got messy, because if the number is even remotely true, we're not talking about a simple settlement. We're talking full-on heist-level audacity. And with Toni Braxton's past bankruptcies, expensive tastes, and long history of financial struggles, a lot of people are starting to question if this whole relationship was just one big setup. So folks is asking the question, did Miss Unbreak My Heart marry the number one stunner what for the bag? And how did Birdman not see this coming? Y'all, the fact that Toni thought she was entitled to 160 million smackaronis after just 2 days of marriage has fans completely gagged. It's exactly why a lot of people are siding with Birdman and calling her a gold digger. Like, how do you leave a marriage that fast and still feel entitled to a fortune? Now, everybody knows that Birdman and Toni officially split back in 2019, but that's where things got even more suspicious, because according to Birdman, Toni started circling back around in 2023, dropping hints, flirting, and basically making it clear that she was ready to spin that block. From the way it's being told, she was trying to get back in his good graces like nothing ever happened. Birdman said he wasn't interested at first because he had already moved on with his life. But according to him, Toni kept pushing. She was persistent, kept showing up, and eventually those old feelings crept back in. One thing led to another, and they ended up rekindling the relationship. They did it for about a year and then finally tied the knot in August 8th, 2024. But here's where it gets wild. And just 2 days later, Toni filed for divorce, because in her court documents filed in September, she listed their separation date as August 10th, 2024, which would have been 2 days after their wedding. Well, fans are still trying to wrap their heads around what even went down in that 48-hour window, but it's already looking shady. And when I tell you that the fans are shook about her $160 million request, I'm not even joking, y'all. 50 Cent even called her out on Instagram saying, "Now watch, women are gonna say, well, if you suck D for 16 years, you won't want to be paid for it." Not 16 years, 50 Cent. The word on the street is that Birdman now feels like Toni Braxton was never in it for love, just the money. And honestly, after hearing what went down, it's not hard to see where he's coming from, because his net worth is sitting at around $160 million, and Toni allegedly wants every single dime. Y'all, Toni Braxton didn't even make it 7 whole days without divorcing him. But sources say that Birdman wants her to put some respect on his name, and he ain't gonna say it no more, because he's been fuming ever since, dragging her behind the scenes and calling her out for being a gold digger. And he's not sugarcoating anything. He feels like he was played, and some insiders are backing that thing up. Allegedly, Toni didn't just try to hit him in the pockets through court. She allegedly took it a step further and even tried to sell out some of his jewelry when she couldn't get her hands on his money directly. Now, as messy as this whole situation is, it honestly shouldn't shock anybody, because honestly, Toni's track record with money has never been the best. She was one of the biggest stars in the 90s that brought in major money, but somehow she managed to lose it all, not once but twice. Now, back in 1998, she filed for bankruptcy for the first time, and it was a massive scandal. People couldn't believe that someone who had sold millions of records would suddenly just go broke, and it didn't stop there, because in 1999, the financial chaos continued and the headlines were brutal. At one point, she even went on Oprah to clear the air, but it backfired because Oprah questioned her spending habits and called out the reckless decisions that got her in debt in the first place. And instead of owning it, Toni crashed out on national TV accusing Oprah of being mean and painting herself as the victim.
Braxton!
She was so freaking mean to me. I was in shock.
Do you take responsibility for the situation that you're in right now?
100%.
100%.
100%. I couldn't believe it because I loved her so much. I admired her and looked up to her. And she pretty much reprimanded me. What do you mean? And immediately, she made me feel this big. This big. That moment completely changed my career. It made people look down on me.
Now, Toni did manage to bounce back after that first bankruptcy. And for a little while, it looked like she was finally back on solid ground, but the peace didn't last. In 2010, she ended up filing for bankruptcy again, and this time it was even worse. According to reports, Toni claimed her debts were somewhere between $10 million and $50 million, and that's not just financial trouble, that's a full-blown meltdown. She blamed the collapse of the cancellation of her Las Vegas residency, which happened after she was diagnosed with a serious heart condition. But that wasn't the only problem. There were major insurance issues, ongoing disputes over coverage, and a long list of unpaid taxes piling up behind the scenes. Since then, Toni's been quietly struggling to stay afloat, and the numbers don't lie. The music just isn't moving like it used to, and her last album barely cracked 7,000 copies in sales and peaked way down at number 163 on Billboard 200. The one before that only did around 16,000 copies. Now, for an artist that once dominated the charts, those numbers are a major red flag. With record sales tanking, her main source of income was shifted to the Braxton Family Values reality show. But even that spotlight has started to fade. The show's buzz has slowed down in recent years, and without steady media attention or chart-topping hits, it's clear the financial pressure has been building. And now fans are starting to wonder if her situation with Birdman was really about love or survival. Now, there were already whispers that Toni was inches away from filing for bankruptcy again. And then out of the nowhere, she popped back up with Birdman after being broken up for over 4 years. The timing definitely had people side-eyeing hard, and now it was starting to look like she was trying to get part of that gator boots with the pimped out Gucci suits, and not really Birdman, the man. Because let's be realistic for a millisecond, when they suddenly got back together in 2023, it didn't make sense to nobody. Toni had spent years insisting that they were done for good, even saying that there was no chance of a reunion. Who do you think I am? Don't you know that he was my man? So when she did a complete 180 and started cozying up to him again, fans instantly knew that something was off. Now, with Birdman calling her out and airing all the dirty laundry, people are starting to think the whole thing was just a ruse and a money move from the start. Now, before the latest mess even hit the fan, fans were already raising eyebrows at the weird tension between Toni and Birdman, especially after that super awkward interview that she did on Tamron Hall in 2022. Now, if you don't remember, Toni was on the talk show about her lupus diagnosis, and it was supposed to be this raw, vulnerable moment, but the second Tamron mentioned Birdman, the vibe completely shifted. Toni went stiff, avoided eye contact, and you could feel the shift in the room. It was clear something wasn't sitting right behind the scenes.
And you said, I'm just not feeling it anymore. And then you came back.
Yeah. I think it's when I was first diagnosed with having lupus, I was so down, I was so depressed, and the doctors told me I would never be able to work again, your music career's over, but the man upstairs had a whole other plan for me.
Yeah.
But at the time...
See, this whole Toni and Birdman saga has never been easy to keep up with. They've been on and off again since way back in 2016, and even when they were on, the relationship just didn't make sense to most people. Now, remember back in 2018 when Birdman popped the question? He came through with that massive $5 million yellow diamond ring. It was flashy, over the top, and had everybody talking. It looked like a fairy tale moment, but then radio silence. No wedding, no real updates, just rumors and some weird energy. Everything about the engagement felt more like a headline than a real relationship.
Okay, you're engaged.
I'm engaged.
He did good, right? Well, right? Very well. He did good. But there's no date.
But the wedding kept getting delayed, postponed, and pushed further down the line, and Toni kept blaming timing. But fans weren't buying it. Then came the biggest red flag of them all. Toni supposedly lost the $5 million ring. Y'all, $5 million of an engagement ring. And she claimed she accidentally left it on a flight. The bag it was in got returned, but the ring completely gone. Just vanished. Like, how do you misplace that kind of diamond ring? Well, now the streets are saying that Toni didn't really lose that ring as she allegedly pawned it off to settle her debts. And honestly, it wouldn't be all that shocking. Her track record with money hasn't exactly been stellar, and word is that she's desperate for cash. So she did what anyone in her shoes might do. Sold the most valuable thing she had at the time, that $5 million engagement ring. At first, Birdman didn't think much of it. He genuinely believed she lost it, and he even played it cool in an interview, brushing it off like it was nothing. But if these rumors are true, that no biggie attitude probably flew right out the window. Eventually, Birdman found out the truth, and that wasn't when everything started to fall apart. Turns out the ring wasn't lost after all, and once he realized she allegedly sold it behind his back, the trust was gone.
Speaking of the jury, that $5 million engagement ring's from Birdman, honey, just gone, honey. So Toni Braxton is trying to get her engagement ring back. Now, one of the questions I want to know is
I know every
They tried to patch things up, but the damage had already been done. The engagement was off, and not long after, the whole relationship just crumbled. Now here we are, years later, and Toni's back on the same money games, and this time Birdman's not playing along. From the outside, it looks like he might have finally peeped the pattern, and it isn't about to let history repeat itself. So if you connect all the dots from the missing $5 million ring to the bag-to-bag bankruptcies to that wild $160 million divorce demand after just 2 days of marriage, it's starting to look real suspicious. Birdman might have been blinded by love at first, but it's clear now he's calling it exactly how he sees it, and he ain't gonna say it no more. But if these latest rumors are true, Toni didn't just fumble the bag with Birdman. She might have been chasing it the whole time. But now that the truth is unraveling, the question is, how much deeper does this go? Is Birdman just bitter, or is he just gonna be a man about it and expose the side of Toni that's been hiding in plain sight this whole time? But either way, one thing's for sure, two things for certain, this messy saga is far from over.